Imagine standing on a global stage, where voices from around the world converge to discuss pressing issues that affect millions. Today, we're diving into a complex topic: the treatment of Muslims in India and the role of international forums like the United Nations and the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, or OIC. This conversation isn't just about politics, it's about human rights, dignity, and the very essence of what it means to be part of a global community. Let's start with the OIC. This organization represents over 50 Muslim-majority countries, and its mission is to safeguard the interests of Muslims worldwide. When it comes to addressing concerns about alleged anti-Muslim policies in India, the OIC is in a prime position to take action. They can issue statements, initiate resolutions, and lobby at the UN to shine a spotlight on these issues. But here's where it gets tricky. The OIC's strength lies in its unity, and that's often a double-edged sword. Member states have different relationships with India. Take Saudi Arabia and the UAE, for example. They maintain strong economic ties with India, which might make them hesitant to criticize it openly. It's a classic case of balancing diplomatic relations with moral responsibility. Now let's talk about the United Nations. The Human Rights Council, or UNHRC, is one of the key channels for raising complaints about discrimination and violence. It reviews country-specific situations and can recommend actions or even investigations. That's powerful stuff. But here's the catch: getting resolutions passed in the General Assembly or the Security Council is no walk in the park. It requires building diplomatic alliances, and we know that powerful countries, especially allies of India, can wield their veto power to block any unfavorable resolutions. It's a chess game where the stakes are incredibly high. What about India's response? You can bet they'll defend themselves vigorously. They'll point to their democratic framework, the constitutional guarantees for religious minorities, and their long-standing history of multiculturalism. India might argue that critics are politicizing internal matters, framing the narrative to suggest that what's happening is a misunderstanding rather than a violation of rights. It's a complex narrative that can sometimes overshadow the voices of those who are actually affected. So, what are the possible outcomes of raising these concerns at international forums? For one, it could heighten awareness. A discussion on a global platform can draw attention to the plight of Muslims in India and potentially galvanize action. But let's not kid ourselves. It could also strain diplomatic relations. If the OIC or UN takes a strong stance, it might lead to tensions between India and certain member states, impacting bilateral ties. And without substantial international consensus or clear evidence of large-scale violations, any resolution might have limited enforceability. It's a delicate dance of diplomacy and ethics, but here's where we can shift gears and think constructively. Instead of solely relying on international forums, why not encourage dialogue between the Indian government and Muslim communities? Addressing grievances domestically can pave the way for real change. Promoting initiatives that focus on interfaith harmony and constitutional rights within India could ensure equal treatment for all citizens. After all, raising concerns through the UN and OIC is valid, but it needs to be part of a broader strategy that considers the diplomatic, economic, and political dimensions involved. In the end, this isn't just about policies or resolutions, it's about people. It's about ensuring that every individual, regardless of their faith, feels safe and respected in their own country. As we navigate these complex waters, let's remember the power of dialogue and understanding. That's where real change begins. One of the most contentious acts of intolerance under Prime Minister Modi and the BJP has been the demolition of the Babri Masjid and the subsequent construction of the Ram Mandir on the same site. This event has been a flashpoint for Hindu-Muslim relations in India, symbolizing deep-seated religious and political tensions. Critics argue that this act was not just a demolition of a structure, but an assault on the religious sentiments of millions of Muslims. Supporters, on the other hand, view it as a reclamation of a sacred site, a move that has been politically leveraged by the BJP to consolidate its base. This incident has drawn international attention, further complicating India's diplomatic relations and adding another layer to the global discourse on religious freedom and minority rights in India. As we consider the broader implications, it's crucial to foster dialogue and understanding to bridge these divides and work towards a more inclusive future.